Roger, we are once again
back on the porch.
Yep, back on the porch.
Love it, love it. Hey, everybody, back on the porch again here in South Carolina, living large.
So, I know you had another taping yesterday with Peggy Denny, and that we'll figure out when that will be shown. I'll put it out on the website once we get a time on those, date and time. And again, Peggy Denny is seen nationally. So you can check your local listings outside the upstate of South Carolina and see when Roger will be on. And then I put out there, you said, let's talk about advice on advice.
Well, I'm always reminded of that phrase about advice, which is fools won't heed it and wise men don't need it. And I also remember the phrase, advice is like belly buttons. Everybody's got one and they're all useless.
Mm-hmm.
So it brings me to that place of that people, especially during the holiday season, are big on giving advice or seeking advice. That relationship is very heavy during this time of people giving advice and taking advice and going back and forth, or listening to advice and blowing it off seems to be another important relationship. I'll ask for advice, and the minute you give it to me, I'll tell you why it's bad advice, and I'm not going to take it. And so even though I've asked for it and you've given it, I see no value in it until it doesn't go anywhere. And I think that relationship is very frustrating for a lot of people. They're not out there trying to give advice, but if asked, they'll give it. And then when they don't feel like anybody respected that advice, they personally feel slighted because of that. So I think this is an important time, more than ever, to listen. I think it's easy to tell people what you're thinking, and I think people are readily throw out advice. But one of the things that we seem to be more needy of and less getting is people asking other people the right questions and causing people not trying to direct people, but be inquisitive of saying, what is this, and what are you looking for, and what do you need, and not allowing people to be part of the process of improving their lives. So that really seemed to jump on my mind early coming to the show today.
Well, so first of all, I hope what we do here on the porch is not in that realm of advice that you shouldn't listen to. We got some value there. And
well, I think, Rick, that's one of the great things about the whole concept of the Southern Porch. I think when people sit on a porch, they weren't giving advice. They were expressing a view.
Gotcha.
They kind of made a table full of food, a table full of ideas. And they didn't say you had to eat everything and you had to eat this much of everything. They just said, it's here. If you like it, eat it. You can eat it until it's gone.
Okay. So how do we help people know what are the right questions to ask when they have issues they're trying to find resolutions to?
I think at the core of every right question is right listening. I think that there has to be a match, just like a tennis game. When the ball, you don't know how to properly hit the ball until the ball comes over. And the speed and the angle and the light of the court all affect how you're going to hit that ball. And so being aware of all those things allow you to hit the ball your own way and in a proper way for it to be effective. And so I've noticed that there are certain people that are just awesome at listening. And so because they've listened well, they ask really in-depth questions, which causes the person who's done the original questioning or answering to kind of step back and go, I love the phrase, well, I never thought of that. Mm-hmm. Wow. And that because people are able to question things, examine things, and get things their own way, I feel like they're better at taking or getting direction or giving themselves direction than they are at other times. Because I don't think it takes a genius to pay people money to come in, to look for them to give you the answer, to hear their opinion, and then walk out. And before you make the door to go out the session, you've blown it all off. Well, that person didn't know what they're talking about. Well, that person's not part of my life, or they're living in fantasy land. What they're suggesting is in a fantasy world. So I'm no more going to follow that than my man in the moon. But I paid money and I've sat there and I've listened, but I don't grow. And then people blame the therapist. Yeah. Oh, that therapist is not good. Wow. I think that's a tough place for a lot of people.
And again, that's where exactly. You'll find also the value of the individual who is there looking for advice. If they're willing to let you walk with them for them to find the solutions to their issues, then that's a powerful relationship. But if they're coming in just to be given the answers without taking ownership of them, then you're right. Those are the ones that will walk out and say they got no value out of it, but they did, put investment in it. So.
Well, and I think an important part of any therapeutic or human connection at the core, Rick, is relationship. I think the relationship people have with each other, mm-hmm. How they've connected, their level of trust, I think is so important. And I think that's why porches in the past were so good. It was a no judgment zone. You went in and people were just pontificating. They were just kind of, this is my story, and I'm sticking to it, and this is what I believe, and this is what works for me. They weren't out there trying to change anyone else. In fact, change was the farthest thing from their mind. They were just expressing their thought. And it was in that counter expression of thought without any pressure that allowed a lot of people to really redirect in a positive way their lives. But I think sometimes we've lost that in this day and age because we have no relationship. We walk in, or the relationship is about exchanging money, but not making any connection. Yeah. So I really have seen, as life is going on, the power of connection, the power of people being connected and taking the time and making the investment to be connected. And I think people are in too much of a hurry. They don't care. They're very centrally focused on themselves and basically don't care what anybody else's life is doing. They don't care. And so they're missing out on their life would actually be better. They're missing out on their life being better because they have not learned the ability to relate. I think so many people went through schooling and dodged the ball of relating to other human beings.
And you're right. And even understanding the skill set. I mean, again, Dale Carnegie wrote about this years back in the 50s, but how to win friends and influence people. It's not, once again, as they call it, rocket science. Call people by their names, ask them about themselves,
right?
Take interest in other people, and guess what? You will start building relationships. But I think you're exactly right. But I have seen this too, that we've lost even the most simple. It is about. I do see a lot of it about being about self.
Yeah, it's very pointed and very purposeful, Rick. I've got an agenda. I'm going to show up and I'm going to make a presentation to everybody I see. Mm-hmm. Buy me, buy me, buy me, buy me, buy my version of me. I've decided I got this version and I'm going to sell it to everybody. And if I sell it to enough people and I walk out of this event and they all think the story I've sold, this has been successful. But at the end, what I see is a lot of depressed people who have sold a story that is not really the real them. And so they sit back and they say, nobody really knows me. And my thought is the reason nobody knows you is that you've never presented you. Yeah. And the way you present you, which is odd and paradoxical, is by interest in others. There's where things really make a difference with people, is that I'm interested in them.
And you and I are of the age that when we grew up, the idea of bragging or selling self or anything that would put the spotlight on you was really more of a discouraged and considered impolite, actually, and rude. And now we live in a society that everything is about selling yourself. LinkedIn, Facebook, Snapchat, any other social media stuff.
Right.
But if you're going to be if you're going to be somebody in life, you've got to brag about yourself. You got to sell yourself. You got to tell the world how great you are. And for me, it's difficult even to do a LinkedIn page or put something out there on Facebook, only because I grew up with the ideology that no, you don't brag about yourself, or you don't make a big deal about your accomplishments.
Right. And it's really interesting to me, Rick, when I think you can judge people right now by how they handle the internet. Younger people are really swift and sharp on the internet, and they really know how to move it and use it and go. But boy, like you say, when you start moving back in age, people are like, I just don't know what to do with this. And so they're actually going against how they've been taught growing up. The internet was not around when we were in high school. So we could not be, quote unquote, internet savvy. And we came from an environment of the porch, where who likes a braggart? Who likes someone who's always selling themselves? Versus today, which is, if you don't sell yourself, you're going to go poor. You're going to go broke. You're going to accomplish very little. Those that get ahead is the attitude.
Yeah, because I just could see going back in the 70s, 80s and getting a promotion at work or something, making a conference call to everybody I knew. Hey guys, guess what? My boss said I was great.
Yeah,
I got a promotion today and a big pay increase. And
that kind of person, I can remember people encouraging you to distance yourself from that kind of person. Nobody likes someone who's self-promoting, was the message of the 70s. Where today is, if you don't promote, you lose. The early bird gets the worm, kind of idea. And that is really hit on people. And so I think that we come to a place where there are so many people out there that are lost. And I think that's a thing for our viewers out there. I think that there are people that are lost and they are looking, Rick, to be found. That they don't like being lost. It is not feel, and things that, and here's the hard thing. Many things that worked in 1970 do not work today. I'm sorry, but they just don't. And people say, oh, I remember it. I loved back then, and I remember how it was. Well, that's a great memory, and I'm hoping it was good for you. But it's not something that's gonna fix today or work today. You have to look at where life is today. You have to look at where people are today. And I think there's one of the things I see in marriages is that people marry someone, and I love the old joke, Rick, where the guy says, I told her I loved her 20 years ago. If anything changes, I'll let you know. What? No, come on, man. That reassurance needs to be there time and time again. But in the old days, when you were out there milking the cows and plowing the field, you only got to tell people you loved them usually once a year or once a relationship. Because what you usually said was, my actions say I love you. Because I'm out there plowing the field, that's another way I tell you I love you. Well, you can imagine, Rick, if you grew up with that, and then you come to a place where you're no longer milking the cows and plowing the field, then you're expecting for people to tell you over and over you love them. And when you don't, that they say, well, I don't feel like you're invested in this relationship. I need to get out of it. And so you have all these problems. Change has been very difficult for people. I think the speed of change is disturbing so many people, and that there are a lot of people who have not and do not keep up with the speed of change in their lives and the lives of the people around them. And I think it causes them an incredible amount of emotional pain.
So how do you keep up with change, and how do you know the needs out there today versus?
Well, I think number one, Rick, is you're involved. Too many people go home, sit at home, turn on the TV or the computer, and it's them and the computer, them and the TV, and there's their life. Yeah. But their actual interaction with people and going to classes and going to church and going to school and being around people, and not only being around them, but interacting with them. It's an activity that sharpens people. But so many people are like dull knives. They're in the shelf. They're never taken out. And a given time, a knife will dull left in the drawer. You have to take it out. You need to get a sharpener out there, and you need to go through the sharpening process on a regular basis. And that's the same way with human beings. Mm-hmm. You got to get out and get involved with people. And I think the older people get, the less sociable they get. And so, and they don't realize it's dulling me, and that I get to a place where I'm so dull, people don't want to be around me. I'm not a pleasant people to be around. A dull person is not a pleasant person to be around. It does not feed the relationship. It does not feed the conversation. It does not feed people to be progressive. And so I think there's the first step you have to look and challenge yourself with. How much am I getting off my fanny and getting around people? I've found that people who get out are happier. People who get around people. Now, it's not perfect. And sometimes people are snarky and ugly and not nice. And I'm not telling people to try to fit in where you don't feel like you're fitting in. I'm just saying it's not perfect. Sometimes you got to go places and work to get in the middle of it. But I've very seldom found places that if you wanted to work and you wanted to get in with people, if you were interested and you were connected, over time, it happened. It was a good deal.
Yeah.
We got lawn care on the outside of the porch.
And we've spoken about this one time too, but again, we just know clinically and statistically that people that are struggling with mild or minor depression, one of the best ways for them to fight that depression is to be around other human beings and actually serving other
beings. I've got a great example of that, which is my wife. Mm-hmm. Okay. When she was in high school and in middle school and even in grade school, she connected with some girls. Okay. And they were very close. Okay. Well, twice a year, these groups get together. And Rick, I'm telling you right now, I say, whatever I've got to do to make sure she can go to that event, because I can tell you right now, when whatever her attitude is, which is usually, I don't know, is not bad, but just dull. She's dull. And if she goes to that weekend with those girls and they talk about the past and they relate to each other and they understand each other, every time, Rick, every time she's done that, she's come back sharper. Mm-hmm. And it makes our relationship better. So it's a win-win. She gets sharper, we get sharper, I get sharper. Woo, buddy, you can't beat that. So and I just told her, never have a good excuse not to go. Never have a good excuse not to go. If this is coming about, get around those girls. Those old friendships improve you. I have said that straight up to her. And I've just seen a lot of benefit from that. But I see people that want to cut off the past, not get around people, sit in the corner of their house, again, with the TV on. What they've done over the years is move from a TV that's black and white and this big to a color TV that's like a movie theater. And there's the big change they've made. And they don't realize they're lackadaisically distancing themselves from others and from their own well-being. And I think that's disturbing,
Yeah. Who was the last person that you actually physically saw from your life before up to age? Can you even go back and remember who that would have
been? Yeah, because it's hard for me because I grew up in Oklahoma. Yeah. So we're talking about me going to Oklahoma and being around people I was with in Oklahoma. So I don't do that as much, sadly. But there are people that 20 years ago I made friends with, I related to, I worked with, I went to church with in Greenville. And I could say last weekend was the last time I was around those people. And that was good for me. I could tell. And here's kind of a evaluation. I could tell, Rick, when I went to the event, I was dull. Mm-hmm. I sensed that in me. I said, well, I'm just not as sharp. We just don't have the sharpness in the relationship we used to have. Excuse me. And so that's what I spent the time at the party doing, was sharpening and getting back and getting where were they and what was going on with their lives and what had changed since the last time we had talked. And so I feel like that the connection was better at the end of the party than it was at the beginning. I don't feel that I walked into the party and was disconnected. I felt very accepted and that it was a good party. But I, inside myself, felt dull. And that our relationship had been like a knife in a shelf. Over the years, we had not taken it out and sharpened it like we had when we first started the relationship. So it had become dull, And I own that. I said, that's my responsibility. And so I didn't passively sit at that party. I got up, I got around people. I talked to them. And like you said about Dale Carnegie, I asked them about them. And in that interchange, sharpening began. And I think at the end of the party, we were in a different place. I basically would say we're back to the old sharp relationship. But it didn't happen by accident. It didn't happen by happenstance. I had to be purposeful, and I had to own my piece in the sharpening of the relationship process, and I had to own the discomfort of it, because so many times people get real dull and they go in and they fake it, and so they leave as dull as they came in, and that happens all the time to people. And I can say that there have been times when I've done that, where I just said, I don't want to be around these people. I don't want to do this, but I'll smile, I'll shake hands, and I'll play as if everything's great. But I really paid the price for that, because after I leave the party and I'm driving down the street, I'm thinking, whoa, buddy, I'm never getting those 2 hours back in my life. And that's sad, because I had an opportunity. I could have chosen to step up, and I didn't. And that's not shame on them for not meeting my expectation. It's shame on me for not showing interest.
Exactly. As we're coming into a season that, again, we've spoken briefly about this on the last couple of shows, but we are coming into a season that is stressful for a lot of people. And one thing I think you would find interesting, and I would challenge those that are watching, is when you do go into a service industry, that's being a restaurant, that's being a retail store, that's basically anybody that's wearing a name tag, see what happens when you acknowledge that person by their name.
Oh yeah, but the thing is, Rick, that takes effort.
It takes effort, but
yeah,
that's what I'm asking. And see what that does. And especially if they have that countenance at first of being just, I am miserable being here serving, working behind this cash register or serving. But if you acknowledge it by name, see what happens to their face, and the fact that they are recognized just by name alone. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised as to what can go, even to the point where you might even get in a conversation with them.
Well, I think one of the things you're implying there that I think is incredibly powerful is the expression of value. When you use someone's name, you're giving them value. When you ask about their lives, you're giving them value. When you choose to make the relationship real instead of surface, you give a value. And I've yet to see people who don't flourish under value. That's like saying I can put light on a plant and it won't perk up. No, you put light on a plant, it perks up. Yeah. You give value to another individual. It doesn't matter if it's someone you're related to or someone you're shopping in their store. It perks them up. It changes the dynamics, and it improves everybody's life. Improves everybody's life.
And those of you that are in management or own companies, again, they have done many studies on this. And yes, financial rewards, financial bonuses are appreciated, but the trouble with those are they come, they're recognized, and they're gone. It has been proven that employees are more motivated by recognition and feeling they have a purpose and value in that organization. And that
nothing's wilder, Rick, than the manager going by and saying, "Hey, Bill." Over and over, Rick, what I've seen is Bill says, he knew my name. Yeah. Again, there was an exchange of value. That person had no value, But when the manager mentioned their name, at that moment, instantaneously, they gained value and they had purpose. And boy, they wanted to invest bigger in the company and in a greater way. And that's what steps companies into another level, is the expression of value within the company.
Sorry, my phone's acted up and I can't. I'm trying to reset. Keep going, but trying to reset.
Technology, don't you love it?
Yeah.
When it works, it's the greatest thing in the world. But boy, when it doesn't, it just drives you crazy.
But and that's cost the company nothing, but has a ton of investment value to it when you do recognize employees.
Right. And what disturbs me, and part of what we're talking about here, Rick, is we are ill-trained, especially people who grew up in the 60s and 70s, ill-trained to connect with people. They are not good connectors. And we pay the price for that. People who connect better, do better, live better, operate better, handle things better. One of the things that comes out of connection is flexibility, emotional flexibility. Because life, there is nobody I've met out there that has the perfect life. Some days it's good, some days it's cruddy. Some days they're in the White House, the other days they're in the outhouse. That's just life. But I found people who are connected handle that swing so much better. And just to have somebody say, I hear you. Not, that's great, that's bad, that's your fault, that's their fault. They just go, I hear you. Wow. That makes such an incredible emotional difference in people's lives. But again, one of the warnings today is this word: isolation is deadly. Isolation is deadly. Isolating yourself is not a good thing. Isolating yourself is a bad thing. It does not improve your life. It makes the quality do a nosedive. It's getting up and choosing to be with people, which is difficult, which takes effort. But when you do it, wow, it makes all the difference in the world. You know, people's emotional state changes. And that's why you see people all the time. You look on Facebook and people say, bring back the porch. I see that all the time. People have a post. It's a picture of a porch, and people are saying under it, what would life be like if we brought back the porch? And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring back the porch. We're trying to say, we get it. We agree with it. We're behind it. You know, we want to connect with you, and we want you to connect with us. And it's through that connection. We are not asking for you to goose step and agree with everything that comes out of your and my mouth. We're not asking that. We're just asking for you to dialogue with us.
And, you know, again, those that may not have heard it, and I think we mentioned this when we first started this, but it was technology that really destroyed the front porch. You know, the front porch was used before the advent of air conditioning really being prominent in everybody's home. So this, again, is where you would go out and, you know, at least be a little bit cool and take advantage of that. And you did see the people walking up and down the street. You knew all your neighbors. Then after World War II, air conditioning really started becoming a mainstay, especially in homes in the South. And so homes started being built without a front porch because people were no longer stopping at the front porch. They were being moved inside the house.
And part of what I'm saying here, Rick, is the porch was the easy product. Yeah. All I had to do was go and take my hiney and sit it on a rocking chair in the porch and talk to whoever came by. Very little effort, very little risk. Stepping out was nothing, okay? And all the things you're talking about made that process harder. It's not like we still don't have porches. It's not like we still can't talk to people. It's not that hard, but it takes effort, and people have gotten lazy, and they're not willing to stretch and get out there. And I can remember I went to a conference several years ago. It was a great conference in the mountains of North Carolina, and it was all men. Mm-hmm. And they all went to a big cabin. And at the end of the night, they would eat together and fellowship and whatever. But at the end of the night, the leader of the conference would sit in front of the fire and talk to the group sitting around them, like the old days. Where you sit around your grandparents and your grandparents talk. And it wasn't giving advice. He was just talking about an older story, an older fable about how people handled life. And I thought, wow. And so it wasn't like somebody was trying to train you or teach you. It was just he was there to share with those who wanted to take it in. And I loved how they set up the environment of it's cold outside, there's a fire going on, it's a rustic cabin, and everybody's just kind of hanging out. And I thought, man, I got so much more out of that than I did going to a nice hotel in a bustling city and went into a room and had somebody me for an hour, and then everybody go by and drink coffee, go home. I thought, goodness gracious. But that's exactly, Rick, how people operate in life now. They just don't want to be bothered. It's too much trouble. And I've even heard people, why don't you want to go to this event? Because you've got to sign your name when you come in. What?
Yeah.
All you got to do is sign your name. That they're just trying to have schedule to recognize that you're involved in what they're doing. No, I just can't do that. That's too much. They shouldn't do that. They should just let me walk in and sit down and partake of whatever and not talk to anybody and walk out. Yeah. Woo-wee. I mean, what's the expectation there? And again, I'm sorry.
No.
What were you going to say?
Well, yeah, but in doing this, and what you were saying is, you made an earlier comment about, we all got trials and tribulations, and we know that. And I definitely am a big believer that if you're going to go through something that is painful, that is hurtful, it's got to have value to it. And what we used to see, and I'm not quite seeing this much, but I'd like to start seeing it again, is take those trials and tribulations, because somebody else is going to be walking that same walk.
Yes.
And people need to know that they're not the only one who has ever faced what they have faced or facing it. And again, what I mean by that is when I got into this, almost 20 years ago now, I was really concerned about, how will it be received giving marital relationship advice yet having been divorced? And I think I could honestly say, I've never had, and I divulge that to new clients, and in 20 years, I've never had any couple say, oh, well, this won't work for us. In fact, just the opposite. Oh, so you do know what it's like to go through struggles in your marriage.
And again, I go back, as I said earlier in the show, it's about relationship. Mm-hmm. If people come in for therapy, Rick, and they don't feel connected, I don't care how much they're paying. I don't care what you're talking about. I don't care how wise you are. That's dust in the wind, buddy. That doesn't mean anything. Because, you're going to throw it out, but you've taken the time to create value, to sharpen the knife of relationship with them, and to get them to know you and you to know them. I think what happens in those moments is magic.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Because I found myself going, for me, have you ever done that where you said something? Yeah. Where did I come up with that? Where was that? And you just realize, oh, that came out of the connection with the people, That was a byproduct that wasn't in the room before they showed up, but we created going back and forth with each other, but by getting to know each other and relate to each other, and to give their dilemma, their experience, value. I've seen that over and over create an atmosphere that is magical and can change people's lives like you can't believe. But when they don't feel you're anything but, appointment number 3 o'clock, and that they're looking for the money of the hour.
Yeah.
I don't care why. Again, I have even said, if Sigmund Freud rose from the grave and was sitting in this office, they couldn't help you because you're not helpable. You've got to be helpable to get help. And I don't care who's giving it to you. You have to be in a place where you can receive it. And that is more powerful than anything. And so one of the things I hope we're encouraging people from a Southern porch vibe is sharpen relationships, sharpen family relationships, sharpen friend relationships. And what you put, even sharpen the people who serve you in the department stores. And there isn't a place that you can't be out there sharpening. And in high school, for you to survive, you were sharpening.
Yeah.
You had to be in there. You had to be involved, or you were on the outside. But if you did that, people all the time, I could talk to them and say, how many friends did you have in the fifth grade? And they say, I had 40 friends.
Yeah.
And I say, how many friends you got today? 2. Who I'm married to. That's what I hear. And then I'm wondering, with fewer friends, are you doing better or worse? And when I found people saying, well, it doesn't seem like I'm doing that well. And I said, I wonder what the level of burden it is for the one person in your life to process all the crud you're going through.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I wonder how many of our Facebook friends we would lose if we said we're going to take off everybody we have not had a physical or at least a verbal communication with in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
How many of those thousands are going to go down to 2?
Yeah. Well, it's hard. And again, it takes investment.
Yeah.
Rick. I mean, that's part of what we're talking about is making the investment. People want to reap the rewards, but not risk anything. I don't want to stick my neck out, but I love the idea of the turtle, that the turtle never moves forward without sticking its neck out. And that is people too. People are like turtles. They've got these thick shells around them. They're well protected. They learn how to defend themselves against anything that comes in their lives. But if they just sit there, the heat of life is going to bake them and kill them. No, you got to get someplace where you're in shade. And to do that, that means you got to stick your neck out. And you've got to be purposeful. And you've got to invest and risk a certain part of your life for it to be better. But if you are, I've yet to see anybody go, well, that's a bad idea. No, that's a great idea.
Yeah, because again, take that one step further, there's going to be times in life we're going to end up on our back, and we're going to need a friend to help us get back on our feet.
Right, and I guess growing older really brings that home. Because it's hard. It just seems like, I don't know about you, but it seems like I was 20 years old a second ago. I can easily remember going to college. I can easily remember who I interacted with, what courses I took. I can remember that like it was yesterday. But wait a minute, that was years and years ago. And that's the way with our health. I can remember when my body operated like a 20-year-old. Yeah. But today it does not. It does not operate that way. And it happened, the change, Rick, happened in the wink of an eye. And so you see a lot of people who are like, I'm 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and then they go out and do stuff. I can remember one day, honestly, I had a friend that said, our company's going to have a touch football game. Would you like to be part? And I played football in high school, so I said, oh, yeah, I'm good for it. I can handle that. And so we were running back and forth in the field, and they'd throw the pass, and I'd jump in the air to try to get it, and I'd fall down. I didn't think anything about it. I went home, and literally, Rick, the next day, I couldn't get out of bed. I was hurting from the tips of my toes to the tips of my fingers. It was like somebody had taken a baseball bat and hit me with it. And then I had to realize, Roger, you aren't 20 years old anymore. Your body is not a 20-year-old body anymore. You've got to respect it, and you've got to make healthy choices. And so even though I might want to go out and play football, I say, well, there was a time I would love, but today I need to pick something. I still need to be active, but I need to be active in a less bombastic way than I used to be. And that's hard. It's like, yeah. That's a wake-up call right there.
And as we started off today with advice on advice, going back to this same topic, and I know I agree with you, and I'm in the same boat. I have no idea where the time went, and yet how many times do people give me advice to enjoy your college days, to enjoy your childhood, to enjoy, and all we were thinking, or all I was thinking about, no, I want to get through high school so I can go to college. I want to get through college so I can get a job. I want to get a job so I can get promotions. So if I do have any advice, that if it's value or not, but think about being mindful of the present. Don't worry about the past. Don't worry about the future, because I think we spend so much time in the past and the future that we forget to appreciate the present, and the present is what gives us the relationships we have now and where we're at, because it is gone in a sec. Oops, it's just past us.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
right. And I'll tell you another thing in light of that, Rick, is when I look back in life, I would like to say it was the big events that really made a difference. But the truth is, it was the little bitty things that I needed to celebrate at the moment, that when I look back will say, wow. And I'll tell you one of the things that really rock your world, when you go back and talk to people you knew when you were young and you ask them about an event, they'll bring up stuff that you were thinking, well, that was inconsequential. That didn't mean anything. But to them, it was a great big event. And, this is real important. So you just, without talking to people and bouncing things off of them, you don't know the value of what you did, what you said, how you did stuff, and how important something you might have done that you said, well, this doesn't mean anything. And nobody noticed and nobody cared. When in fact, you might come to a place where you're saying, wow, I didn't realize how many people got that. And I never thought they got that from it.
Yeah. And then as we talk about adding value to other people's lives too, I think that would be a good exercise over the next several weeks during this holiday season, is think about the people who have made major impacts in your life that maybe you haven't touched base with them in a while, but touch base with them, again, not through email or Facebook, but call them, or if they're local, get with them and just tell them how much you value. And again, like I said,
have a cup of coffee with them. Sit down, person to person, and have a cup of coffee. It's amazing. I mean, we didn't have coffee in the 70s. Well, we had it, but we didn't have it like we have it now. And I love that. I love to sit down early in the morning with somebody and just have a cup of coffee and talk. I think that is a powerful, powerful moment. And again, it's I think an early version or a more structured version of the porch. It's the restaurant or the coffee table coffee.
Yeah.
It's really good.
And if you are one of those people that are getting that contact made from somebody else, don't again tell yourself you don't have time or
make time.
Or love to do it sometime in the future, because again you're taking away from them that opportunity to share with you what that impact was you made in their lives.
That is so true. So true, Rick. You again, things in our lives get dull from lack of use. Things in our life, and we personally get dull from lack of use. And if there's anything we want to encourage during this holiday season, is to get off your hiney, get out there. When people ask you to have a cup of coffee, get a cup of coffee with them, or lunch or dinner, or let's stop and sit on the porch. And what we're saying, one of the best presents to give and one of the best presents to get that will ever happen to you. Mm-hmm. It's very important, very powerful, and we highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, if you ever have a doubt, go out and take that new car you just bought, the 2018, and park it and don't ever drive it. Don't use it. And ask any mechanic if that's what that car was designed for. And then when you come back in a year or so and you have tire rot and rust forming on it, guess what? It was designed to be driven and used. And that's what, it takes maintenance. We all take maintenance, but again, we're designed to be driven and used. And what I mean by that is, again, that's in relationships. So,
yes. And again, we love to tell ourselves fantasies. Mm-hmm. Again, just like we were talking about, I'm still 20 years old. I still got it. It's still the way it is. Whoa, come on. When I'm around people like that, I find my vision glazing over and going, oh, okay, and being agreeable and looking for the exit when that happens. But when people talk to me about where they are now, what they're dealing with now, who they really are, wow. I mean, I'm there. I'm right with them. I'm so invested that they say this time was valuable enough for me to really share, not to just glaze over the moment.
Well, that's a great place to probably bring this to an end, Roger, because again, we'll find out the times that Peggy Denny show is on in the upstate, and everybody else can look at local listings, but I'll try to locate that and get that on Facebook. And we're still working on the website. We had a good session yesterday with the web developer. We'll be anxious to see how
be watching for the website, Southern Porch Life, www.southernporchlife.com. And you'll live another layer of what we're doing here. We're very excited about it.
And as the old saying goes, as you well have stated before, if the God willing, the creek don't rise.
Yeah,
we'll be here Tuesday.
God willing, and the creek don't rise. Now, again, here's something. I've heard that phrase over and over again. And do you know that that's about Indians?
And what about the Indians? Oh, the creek tribe?
The creek tribe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good Lord, the Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Well, what it's saying is, Lord willing, and the creeks don't have an uprising, will be there, was really the meaning of that phrase back in the day. Now, today we think creek like stream.
Yeah.
If it doesn't flood, and God's willing, I'm going to be there. But that's not the origin of the phrase.
I always love to learn new stuff about little icons of our vocabulary.
Yeah.
So
I just heard that the other day. I went, oh, I didn't know that.
All right, so we'll see everybody else. We're using a new computer today, so I actually have to get up this time and turn it off. But I'll try to stay this side.
Totally technical here. I got to get up and hit the off button.
So we'll see you next Tuesday.